Thank you, everybody, for coming on time. That's very important. It's going to be the Eric McCormick show today. Did everybody bring a whistle, get a beanbag, and flag? Very good. So this is going to be my last time. Tonight is going to be my last time with you guys for possibly months, because I'm going to prison. I have to spend some time in prison and do my, and then I will be paroled maybe in September, October.
Impossible.
Yeah. So, hey, Jeremy. I'm going to ceremonially hand the keys to the school to Randy. So please, on Sunday, you can contact me up till Saturday night. On Sunday, and I'm just going to be crass, I don't care what happens, because I've got my own thing to do. So reach out to Randy, reach out to Eric, and I want to remind you, the test is open, but don't take the test until you are ready. You don't get extra points. And when you take the test, have your rule book open and find the rule in the rules book before you answer. And then remember, there are 80 questions, take 80 screenshots. If you don't and you fail twice, then that's a self-inflicted wound. And I don't know what to say to you. So be smart when you take the test. Has anybody other than Brett had any issues with Arbiter? Okay. Any questions for me before I step off the stage? All right.
Give it up for James coming in too. Alrighty, we'll get started then. Flip over one slide and we'll just look at the agenda for tonight. The whole point of tonight, right, we're talking wing mechanics. And so wing mechanics I love doing. I've done this a number of times, and 75% of the night we're going outside, right? So this is going to be real quick, hit some wave tops in terms of key concepts, hopefully that you have at least checked out a little bit on the wing mechanics video, the beanbag video, the penalty flag video, whatever you've clicked through already on the Art of Officiating site. We're just hitting a couple key concepts, then we're going to go practice it. So if you haven't looked at it yet, it's going to be trial by fire here in a few minutes kind of thing. So short mechanics stuff, we're going on field, whistle practice, penalty flag practice, mechanics and positioning practice. We're going to do skills and drills. We've got some veterans coming in to help us out with that tonight as well, so that you're going to get a real quick crash course on the whole wings setup, especially if this is your first set of fall games or game one coming up for you. And then we're going to do chains the last 15, 20 minutes. So wings, one of you is going to be responsible for the chain crew on every game. So if you've not practiced giving your chain crew briefing or ever seen a set of chains, Mark's going to lead us some of that the last 15, 20 minutes of class, unless we need to pivot the schedule when we go outside. So we'll do that, wrap up some questions at the end, get you out here on time, and we'll rock and roll through things, okay? Questions on plan for the night? All right, so we're only going to be here until 6:10, real quick, like I said, short and sweet. Rock through this and then get on out of here. All right, so I teach and hit the highlights here. We'll start with just those whistle reminders, right? So that's where we're going first. You can move to our next slide here. So again, we practiced this last time, right? 2 whistle types that we teach our new officials here, right? You've basically got the long, solid 1 second, kind of your standard end of play, nothing crazy, nothing weird happened. We're going to practice that again outside if you haven't had a chance to do that or done it in the mirror or in your garage in the last week or so. And then again, we've got our look at me, attention grabbing, long, loud chirps. Right, your tweet, 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 look at me, I've got a penalty, I have an injury, I have a timeout, I have something weird, I need my white hat's attention and everybody else to know that we have something out of the ordinary. What we want to avoid, right, those quiet whistles. If your whistle is no louder than I'm talking, right, what's the point of blowing that whistle? And also the one beep that lasts a quarter of a second and nobody around you hears it. Again, we want to avoid those when we get out there too. You're communicating with a crew, right? Your partner across the way, your white hats. You may have other officials, depending on how big of a crew you're working on. If you're not communicating with them, that's one of the primary points of having a whistle. In addition to communicating with your coaches and your sideline and fans, letting them know we have something going on, then really why are we using it kind of thing, okay? So we're going to practice that when we go outside. New topics tonight. Hopefully you've got your penalty flag and your bean bag. So penalty flag, right, we know what it is, it's yellow, it's obnoxious, we've got at least one of them on us, and we try to not throw it too terribly much in a game, right? We use our other tools, our whistle, our voices, things of that nature before we get to the penalty flag land. Tonight, for mechanics, for wings, we're gonna practice our penalty flag tosses. All right, so we've got our 2 penalty flag toss types. We're gonna have a sky, and we're gonna have throwing a flag to a spot. Okay, knowing how those apply as a wing is gonna be really important because, right, primarily, we may need spot enforcement depending on where penalties occur. And that's gonna get into these live ball fouls where we talk about throwing a flag to where a penalty that you saw occurred on the field. All right, so with dead balls, skying a flag, how high do we wanna throw it?
Twice your height.
Twice your height, 5 to 10 feet. Are we aiming to throw it as high as the stadium upper deck? Most of the time not, unless you end up on one of these really small schools that the bleachers are only yay high. So we're not trying to toss it obnoxiously as high as we can with aggression, nor just trying to be a showboat, right? So skying a flag, we're talking twice your height, 5 to 10 feet, just nice and up in the air. It takes practice. If you've not practiced your flag throwing yet, to not throw it backwards over your head, back behind into the coaching box or something like that. It happens. So we're going to practice that as well. So skying the flag for dead balls. As a wing, you're also going to get that when we have things at the snap that either kill the play, right? So we've got our encroachments and our false starts. That can be a sky flag. And then we also have those at the snap, the illegal shifts and motions that we'll be talking about tonight and next week. That the play continues, but we identify that with a sky flag as well, okay? So critical ones at the wings we'll quickly see probably within the first couple of plays of your first game out there on the field. And then live ball fouls here, that's where we're gonna have action going on during a play. We see a penalty, we're gonna have penalty flag, in our belts, in our shorts, in our pants. We're gonna have our penalty flag come out, and we're going to throw it in the general area of where a penalty occurs, right? So that's called basically a live ball foul or a spot foul, where we're gonna identify where we saw something happen. Pitfalls with this, we'll practice avoiding, not trying to, but hitting players with your flag. That takes a little bit of practice to try to not do. And then if you have not actually practiced throwing at something in particular, like a spot or a foul, right, that penalty flag may get carried in the wind. Your efforts may go in vain if you are in the wrong direction of your grab, and things like that. So we'll talk about what happens if you have a terrible throw trying to mark a penalty and how we can fix that, okay? So live ball, dead ball fouls with penalty flags. Anything there, we're gonna practice when we go outside, but anything at a high level right now. Okay, all right, bean bags. Again, we have our tools in our tool belt. Blue, black, white bean bags. Many of you have acquired them or brought them already, but what the heck do you do with them, right? So we carry them around, we know we throw them at some point, but actually knowing when that occurs is very important. So we're gonna practice tonight the mechanics of when and where to throw a bean bag. But it marks certain things, right? So we carry bean bags on our person. We're marking spots of fumbles. We're marking first touches, right, by K on scrimmage and free kicks. And we're marking end of scrimmage kicks. Those are kind of the big buckets that our bean bags will fall into. What's something we're not marking with a bean bag in high school football? Anybody know?
Interception.
Yes, interception here. So that's a big one. We're not going to mark an interception spot in high school football mechanics because that's never going to be an enforcement spot of a penalty. So if you're in that habit, or you do it on occasion just as a reflex because you've seen it, it's not the biggest deal, but we are not required to mark that change of possession by an interception. So, we want to avoid that habit, but if you have it, it's not the end of the world. Yeah, Dave.
Do we beanbag it when it's intercepted inside the 5-yard line and going in?
Going in, the mechanic is no.
What he's saying is momentum exception.
Yeah, so momentum exception, yes, we can have that beanbag be a drop. So when we get to those advanced level, yes. As a general rule of thumb, though, for interceptions, no. But yeah, so if we get to that inside momentum exception rule, then yes, that would be one. If you've got that presence of mind in the moment, absolutely. So if you are not familiar with momentum exception, we're getting there, and we'll see that later on this season, and that's a good high-level topic as well that we'll be covering in the future courses of stuff. All right, so beanbags here. Beanbags differ from our penalty flag tosses in that the biggest thing for beanbags, we're going to practice making sure we've got good line markers, right? So yard markers of where things happen. We don't, though, have to throw a beanbag to an exact spot in terms of where an actual fumble or touching or end of the kick occurred. So what I mean by that is if Tim has a fumble or Tim is the ball carrier and fumbles, we just want to get on the field somewhere parallel that it happened, right? We don't have to throw the beanbag all the way to the spot exactly that a fumble occurred or a kick ended or something to that effect. We're going to practice identifying that our beanbag's in a good spot, but we don't have to chuck it halfway across the field. Okay, so that's just something that's going to aid in getting folks potentially something to trip on, or otherwise, that it's going to get lost in the shuffle. We'll also make sure that for younger folks, when you do the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade games, you at least get it far enough off the field, because the smaller children and players like to pick it up and hand it right back to you when you chuck it on the field. And so we want to get it far enough off that it does not look interesting to them. True story, it happens. That we'll practice making sure that we've got good spots, because that could be a spot of enforcement penalties. We may need to come back for that drop of a beanbag for various other reasons, so we'll make sure we have that in a good spot. All right, beanbags, anything at a high level here? Good question on the momentum exception. Anything else right now? If you are a line judge, a kind of advanced question here for purposes of our mechanics in 4-person crews, 3-person crews, how many as a line judge? How many beanbags should you carry? 2. Yeah, you should carry 2. It's a good idea for all officials to carry 2. What's different about if you're a line judge or a back judge with your beanbags? You're carrying 2. What's the other thing that Mark mentioned in some of his videos?
Use it for the chains.
Potentially, we'll have a chain clip, but beanbags sometimes play in the chains. The big thing that we highlight with 2 beanbag colors is that it's a differentiator between an end of a kick. So we'll carry 2 colors for like a first touching and an end of a kick. So line judges will have coverage of punts in a 4-person crew. So having 2, a blue and a black, and back judges or a blue and a white, the colors don't necessarily matter at this point in time. But we will want to have 2 potential colors as a line judge and a back judge when you get to your beanbag mechanics. Okay? So tonight, as long as you have 1, we're good.
Just to specify, the head linesman has the chains and the line judge does not. So in this case, we're talking about the line judge who does not have the chains, having the 2 beanbags.
Yes. As a head linesman, and a lot of officials will carry 2 of the same color if they're in one of those other positions. Because you will find many a time where if you have 2, sometimes they're useful for various parts of the game. Good questions. All right, continuing on then. All right, so wing key concepts. I chewed on this a little bit, like when I was going into a wing as my first set of games, what stuck out to me, what did I really want to focus on, and what are your kind of the biggest things to keep in mind, what are you aiming for, right? So we talked, and Mark's talked about kind of really making sure that forward progress spots, that is one of your biggest products and selling points and things that you are responsible for as a wing, right? So these are now going to be brain bites that start thinking about these as we go outside here in a little while and we start running through plays and drills, right? So marking forward progress, if you're not familiar with what that is, in terms of marking an end of a run or a pass play, what happens if a ball carrier starts getting driven back, right? And getting a good forward progress spot, communicating with your wing partner across the way that you're in sync and we don't end up 3 or 4 yards apart marking a spot. Those are all things that you're going to start getting reps on and practice on. So that's one of your biggest things as a wing that you're responsible for. Okay, so we're going to practice doing that when we go outside. Your management of your sideline, your coaches, your players, right? You were kind of that pulse of whichever sideline you're on. Hopefully they're not giving you too many issues, but from the get-go, right, we're talking to our coaches in pregame. You'll have a meeting with your team. You'll have then at every play, making sure your sidelines are clear with your coaches, your players. You may be responsible for the chain crew if you're the headlinesman on your side of the field. And then throughout the entire game, your team's either going to be up big, down big, or we could be in a brawl kind of thing with a really close back and forth game. And you are communicating to your crew, how's my sideline doing? How are my coaches doing? Is somebody mad about something that I should communicate, out to my crew and what's going on with that? And if they're being amazing, letting your team and your folks on the crew also know that is always good to have that pulse check. All right, engaging as part of an officiating crew. If you're a new wing, it's really easy to get on an island sometimes. Don't forget that this is an officiating crew. You've got 2, 3, 4 partners out there. You are a crew managing this game, right? So when you're going through as a new wing in particular, you're thinking about counting players. Where do I go? What do I signal? Kind of thing. And you forget you have an opposite wing partner. You forget you've got a white hat helping you manage the game. So don't forget, you're not out here by yourself. It's really easy to start kind of getting into that mindset. But you've got a whole crew of folks supporting you and that you're all trying to do the same job. So as a new wing, I remember thinking, I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't looked at my wing partner in 5 plays. You know, I'm counting people here, I'm talking to my close receiver, I'm like, I've got a partner over there that I haven't made eye contact with in 4 or 5 plays. So that's something interesting that you'll start developing that mindset for. And then finally one here, the stuff that's in your control. The movements, knowing what your keys are, knowing that you're in a position and your eyes are looking where they're supposed to be. It takes practice. Ball watching is hard. Ball watching is something that if you have not officiated before is really easy to do. It's amazing where if you know where you should be looking, you'll start to see the game a little bit differently. You're going to catch things off ball that we want you to be responsible for. And then, you know, if you can get yourself in a position, you're going to see so much more than if you're just standing in a line or watching the ball move around or play goes to the other side of the field and you all of a sudden have disengaged from that game. So it's really interesting to see how just that effort of knowing where you should be looking, can be looking, will make you more successful as we go forward on that. Thoughts on wing key concepts? Tim, anything?
No, it's all good.
Yeah, cool. Any questions on those? So just brain bites, start thinking about that as we go outside and things of that nature. All right. So thinking through a play, this is not an acronym, but this is going to be the development of kind of your routine, right? So as we get through, we're talking about scrimmage plays here. Kicks, a little bit different, but the same general ideas will apply, especially as we start talking about pre-snap routines. So pre-snap, you're going to get into a routine. It looks similar for people, but there may be a different order to how you go about getting ready for a play. Counting players, looking at legality of your formations, checking your sideline, making sure we're ready for a play. We've got coaches and players back, and anything else that may involve your pre-snap routine, checking equipment, if we've had a problem with like dangling mouthpieces so far this game, that kind of stuff. That's going to look a little different to each official. That's going to be you getting into a routine that every play I go through A, B, C, D, E, and then I know we're ready to go. Tackle and next keys. So we're going to start talking about keys and we're getting ready for a play at a formation. What the heck am I supposed to be looking at? So we start identifying where our tackle is. That's going to give us a great way to identify the type of play, run versus pass. So once we have a good legal formation, we've gone through our pre-snap routine, keying in on the tackle, seeing what kind of play is probably going to develop when that ball is snapped. And then knowing where our eye should go next. Do I have receivers I'm responsible for? Do we immediately read run, and which way are we going with the running play? Things of that nature. Plays sometimes blow up or explode or don't go according to plan. All of a sudden the receiver you're supposed to be watching is not paying any attention or involved in the play anymore. Sometimes the play has gotten blown up in the backfield or we're now running back and forth. And knowing your general, we're not watching a key anymore or a receiver anymore or somebody in particular, but now we've got zone responsibilities across the officiating crew. Where should my eyes be looking? What am I looking for until that play is over? And when the play's over, what are we doing at the end?
Back into position.
We're still officiating.
Dead ball officiating, yes. So play over, whistle, we don't turn our back on it though. There's still so much crap that happens out there sometimes, making sure that we stay engaged and watch the end of the play, dead ball officiating until we get ready to start that next snap. All right, thinking through a play there. So you're going to practice outside, going through some of these pre-snap routines, and then looking to where you need to be keeping your focus on as plays get underway. All right, next up. So pre-snap routine. This kind of incorporates some of those things I was just highlighting, right? So counting players. Which team are you responsible for? That's something you're going to practice pre-gaming with your white hats. Which team am I responsible for counting throughout the game? Who am I supposed to be signaling on my crew that we are counting the same thing and we have a good count? What does that look like? What do we do if we have too many or too few on the team we're responsible for? Knowing those pieces of your crew communication and what you're watching for. That's going to be something, if you haven't thought about, that you'll start getting into the pre-snap routine. Sideline management. Head coach or sideline coaches causing problems consistently, or just having a glance. Even if your sideline has been good the entire game, just do that quick check, make sure your restricted area is clear. Getting in the habit of that so that you don't truck into somebody as soon as that play happens. Looking at the legality of formation, so that's where we're on the line, we're off the line, we're talking to our receivers, we're checking with our partner across the way. If we've got double punches back, right, we're counting how many folks are in the backfield. We might have too many, right, things of that nature. We're getting ready for a snap, making sure we've got good legal formations. Communicating with the chain crew, right? Sometimes they're awesome, sometimes they're a little less stellar. if we have crews, if we have a chain crew that maybe they are moving a lot, or they're not keeping up with the downs, on the box or something like that, you might have to be pretty vocal with them so that we don't have them screw something up too terribly on the sideline as far as chains go. So you may have communication with them. And then as we get ready, we're getting snap imminent. We're identifying our keys. All right, so we're getting ready at the snap. We have a good way of knowing where we're going to start watching for our upcoming plays. And then we've got our whistle ready, because what's going to potentially happen right at the snap or right before. Right? We're thinking about maybe false starts or encroachments or something. We may be ready to kill the play right before it goes off, right? So we're also thinking about having that whistle in the mouth, whistle ready. I've done my pre-snap routine, and we're ready for this action. Okay? So highlights there, the pre-snap routines. All right, so ball is snapped, no penalties. We have a live ball. We have good action, right? So we're ready to start officiating. Just at a high level, we'll talk running plays first, right? So running plays in the middle or coming towards you. So we have a good legal snap. What are we doing when that ball is snapped with our whistle if you're a wing? Drop that whistle, right, exactly. Don't be the person that runs around with it and causes the inadvertent whistle. It's sometimes a habit you gotta get into, right? So the Lanyard whistle, spit it out as soon as that play is snapped. We talked about looking at the tackle. So what happens if a tackle typically, right, lunges forward, right? So if you're watching your end tackle and they lunge forward, that's a high likelihood we've probably got a run play. You'll be amused when you do younger kids, Parks and Rec, that may not give you any clue. So just be aware. But as you get into some of the higher levels of our game, the tackles will give you a good indication there. All right, so if the run is straight ahead, so we've read run, and we've got just a handoff or a quarterback keeper or some sort of run right up the middle, right? Are we going to be bouncing up and down the sideline as an official, trying to get position? No, we're not going to bounce. Are we going to get 5 yards ahead of the runner?
No.
Right, okay, so we're going to move with purpose as necessary, right? If we've read run up the middle, we've watched our tackle, we're watching kind of the pile and maybe anything on our side in terms of tackle, tight ends, watch what the receivers are sort of doing depending on how much chaos you have on your side. And then as your runner moves across the line of scrimmage for a couple of yards, 10 yards, whatever, we're keeping track of them until we have a good end of forward progress, right? So we're watching our forward progress spots and getting ready to have a good end of play, or we're killing it because we have a first down or something like that. All right, so straight ahead runs, usually pretty simple. Your umpire, if you have one, is out there doing a lot of kind of keeping the central pile or the central mass of folks at the snap, right, under control for watching for holds or blocks, but you may have something on the exterior of that line that you'll have a good look at. So you'll start thinking about things like that. You may have a hold on the outside. You may have some sort of blocking penalty that we'll want to keep a watch as you go through some of those additional reps as a wing. But keeping track of the runner, right, and getting good progress spots will be one of your main responsibilities as a wing with running plays. If they come towards you, what is most important if they start coming towards you on your side? Backing up, or essentially, right, not getting trucked yourself, because if you get trucked with a running play that comes your way, are you officiating terribly well? Probably not. I don't usually. The last couple times I had runners come at me, it didn't go so well to see penalties or positioning on things like that. All right, so we're at the line of scrimmage. We've had a run play. They're coming at me. That first spot, and you're going to start getting this one for your safety. Your neck's going to tingle a little bit because you're like, oh no, a lot of football players are coming quickly at me. But that first step potentially being back, both physically from the field and back upfield behind that line of scrimmage so that the runner can get around you. You're watching out in front of your runner, potentially then your runner wherever they go out of bounds or get tackled, but you're protecting yourself and then watching from behind as that runner comes around on your side. Yeah?
If we're the head linesman and we're responsible for the chains, do we make sure that the chains get back as well if we have players on the team?
That's a good advanced question. We're going to get to that this evening. The short answer, though, is that you have, as the head linesman, briefed your chain crew that if their safety is threatened, they're going to drop the sticks and the box, and they're going to back up and get out of the way. That's why we have our chain clip. That's why we have a couple of different ways that we can reset the chains if their safety is threatened, if a ball carrier or other players come at them. But yes, they're going to get out of your way so you can get out of the way, and then we'll get everything back set up after that play is over. All right, snap, running plays up the middle, or coming your way. Anything I missed, Randy, Mark, for running plays in this direction. Don't get hit. That's a big one. All right, so running plays then continue the other way. Similar idea of concepts, but if we go to the next slide. So away from the sideline, right? So we're on our line of scrimmage, we've got to run, they're going away from us here. Our responsibilities change a little bit because the play is moving away, and this takes some discipline and some practice. That we do not focus on the ball carrier. We let our partners, right, that we're remembering we have across the field, be responsible for some of those blocks and holds and things happening out ahead of the runner. You very quickly become kind of the cleanup or the backup official watching things behind the play, because you're going to get into a situation where you're going to be the only eyes on a lot of the players behind wherever that ball goes. And so having the forethought to keep a watch on cheap shots, blocks going the wrong direction, anything unsportsmanlike, anything behind the play that gets chippy, you may be the only set of eyes on as a play that's a running play goes around you. So you're going to start seeing some of those things where you're officiating, you're still on the side of the field, you've not come creeping on, and then you're actually at the end of the play going to then help your partner mark off a spot or mirror them if they've got a good one downfield on their side of the field with a running play. Potentially, for a forward progress spot, as a wing on the far side, you may have to help your partner if they have got into chaos or had to get out of the way for something and didn't get a good spot. You may have to help them if you had a good end of play. That's a mechanic that you may potentially do. Also, if they've had a penalty or some other reason they've had to vacate their spot or a forward progress spot that they didn't get a good look at, you as the far official can potentially help with that. So there's ways that even though the play went the other direction, you can have a really important role in making sure you as an officiating crew have a good spot and have good game management moving forward at the end of that play. Okay, so lots to keep a watch on even if the ball is not on your side during those running plays. Questions on running before we switch over to just general passing coverage? Okay? All right, cruising along then. Passing plays here. So again, we've watched our tackle. If tackle is on the line, come up and start backing up. Good indication that we're probably in some sort of passing play. Not guaranteed, but odds are pretty decent on that. You will have probably thought in your pre-snap routine, you'll look at the formation if they've come out with 4 or 5 receivers, across their entire line, that we may have a passing situation here. So tackle, knowing then which receivers you're responsible for or knowing what your keys are. You may not have great familiarity with that right now, but you're going to get those practices in where you're going to start saying, ooh, 4-person crew, I have both 1 and 2 receivers on my side. And knowing that that's going to be your key, right? In 3-person, you're kind of watching a whole lot of things, and it changes differently again when you get into 5-person mechanics. But knowing who you're responsible for so that you are not watching the ball and the quarterback the entire time takes some practice. But then it's a really good way that you're going to start having your eyes move downfield, not necessarily moving with your feet, but at least with your eyes, watching things off ball that you're going to be responsible for. You can peek into the backfield, but trust your white hats. They're watching the quarterback, they're watching everything that behind the line of scrimmage that they're going to have under control. We don't need everybody looking back there. It does take practice, but I guarantee you when you get that hold on a receiver or an off-ball type of pass interference or something, your eyes are where they're supposed to be when that flag comes out because you were looking where you were responsible for on that pass play. It takes some practice though, I promise. We'll get everybody there. All right, pass play coverage continued then. All right, yep, you're good. So forward progress then, we're talking end of pass play or end of that run play, right? Mark calls it the most important product for our wings here, and highly agree with that in terms of making sure we've got good end of play spots here, advancement of the ball. So again, sometimes we've run into these definitions, so I won't read them to you verbatim or anything, but again, it's making sure we have given the runner everything that they're entitled to with that forwardmost point of the ball, and then if they've been driven backwards involuntarily, right, so they've been taken back by the defense or something like that, we give them as much progress as they gained before they were brought back. It's tough to do. You sometimes see where we have like a knee and then a slide, right, marking where they slid down to. Potentially that's too much. Or we marked them where they got driven back to, right? So it can kind of go both ways in terms of progress spots. So getting that practice in where we have a good progress spot we've marched it off, and then we've come onto the field and either killed the clock with the first down or marched it off. Is very important in practice that we'll get to do. Yes, sir.
Just make sure. So if we especially like have a quarterback or any ball carrier, and they intentionally start to slide, the forward progress is where they initiate the slide, is that correct?
Yes. And that is one I think I would say we see less at this level than higher, high varsity and into college. You'll see that with more practice regularity. I don't think we necessarily saw a ton, at least last year, I didn't see a ton of that intentional sliding. They were more likely to they were more likely to trip on the grass than think it would be intentional slide. But if you see that, yes, you'll want to get that initial spot of giving themselves up. Progress spots are hard, and when you start watching yourself on videos of either yourself or there's a ton of video clips of other officials here, you're going to start to see where those progress spots you can run into trouble if we don't give enough or we mark too short, or if your partner across the way has something and is 2 or 3 yards further ahead of you than where you had it, and that takes something of seeing yourself or seeing other officials, where did we miss in terms of getting a progress spot, or how do we communicate with our partner if somebody is very confident that they had a better spot than what their partner's indicating, how do we get that ball in a good spot for the next play. Progress is your biggest thing, so making sure you kind of have that in your mind though throughout each play really is a good way to show coaches, show your crew members, and make sure we've got every earned yard being fairly given at the end of each play. So progress spot's a very big thing. Moving along then. All right, so progress spots continued here. I'm gonna not go into much more here other than to say we will practice our squaring off and progress spots and what happens if you get driven back when we go outside. But again, wings, you're gonna get drilled in terms of crew discussions and questions and things like that. Did you get good progress spots? How were we as a crew giving progress spots throughout the course of a game or over the course of a quarter or something like that, where we're gonna wanna make sure that if you notice you're having less success marking forward progress spots, that's really a critical thing that we work on as wings. So it's not just where you went down necessarily, but giving by the rule and by the definition for progress gains as they're written out. All right, money lines next up. If you've not heard money lines, you've not watched enough of Art of Officiating videos, because we love the money lines here. So line to gain and goal lines, those are going to be your biggest money lines when you hear Mark, Randy, other folks talking about them, and the importance of wings having really good spots and wherewithal to be aware that we have money lines in play. So this slide mostly dealing with our line to gain, right? So our first down line, it's 1st and 10, so the line to gain is 10 yards away. If we get within a play starting and we're within 2, 3, 4 yards of that line to gain, having the wherewithal thought that we're going to be close potentially on this play of a line to gain. Your mechanics as a wing slightly change, whereas we previously generally hold the line of scrimmage until we need to move. Money lines, all of a sudden, we're thinking a little bit more about getting to the line to gain ahead of a runner when that ball is snapped, depending on where we are with distance, that we are already sitting on a line to gain. So in this case, our first down line, that we have good eyes and we're already here, so that as a runner or a ball carrier comes up and it's close, we've got a great look and we can come in selling, we're short, we have it, or we're close, right? And you're communicating that with your crew members and your white hat as to where we are on the field. And if we potentially have a first down for sure, if we're really short for sure, or we're not certain, and your white hat needs to take a look at it to see if we need a measurement or if they need to make a decision on those money lines. We're going to practice pinching. You've probably seen where wings come in as fast as they can sprint potentially with some energy, good crisp signals, even if it's in the dead middle of the field. If Tim's my partner and we're on the lines here, we may be crashing really, really hard, really fast with loud whistles and loud verbals because we're close. We're going to ask for that ball. We're going to spot it. We're going to keep players away. And we're going to get our white hat to come look at it if we need to determine that line to gain and if we have a first down. It's going to be really important game awareness that we know where these money lines and goal lines are so that we can have good spots and that we look like we have a good spot with confidence. Even if you know you have it, if I look like a schlump on the sideline, I'm not moving or anything, no one's going to believe that I have a good spot. And when 6 inches or a foot matter, that confidence, that energy, right, is what people see. Your coaches, your sideline folks, your parents in the stands and things like that, okay? Line to gain or money lines. I know there's goal line as well, but any thoughts on money lines?
Just be aware that the line to gain as a money line sort of depends on where you are in the game. A first down in the first quarter 0-0 isn't as big a deal as tie score, fourth quarter, down inside the 15-yard line. Okay, now that's a really important money line. So the goal line is always a money line. The line to gain kind of depends on the game situation as to how important that getting that exact spot is.
And so being kind of in that game mindset of knowing where you're at in terms of closeness of the game, how the energy has been, and then where we are game situation-wise is really important too. Yeah, 1st and 10 in the first quarter versus late in the fourth, right? Those spots really, really matter. Unless you get some coaches that want the money line in the first quarter and will yell at you, but that's their problem and not yours. So, all right, so line to gain here. Go on to the goal line then, so switch that. Goal line plays, also money lines, right? But not just what we talked about first day, now we're talking about points on the board. And so having great looks at our pylon and our line of scrimmage and then moving to that goal line, right? Really, really important. So mechanics of a wing, we're going to practice when we go outside. 5 and 10, your yard lines, are going to be the biggest things to remember. If we have goal line plays, so we're going in to score, we're within that 5-yard line, you crash that goal line the second that ball is snapped. You are crashing to the goal line if you're inside the 5 at the start of that play. If you're inside of the 10, so 5 and 10, if you're inside of the 10, you need to beat the runner or the ball carrier to the goal line. You don't have to get there immediately when the ball is snapped, but if you see a running play develop or a short pass, you've got to get on your horse, you've got to beat them to the goal line to make sure you get as good a look at that as you can. So 5 and 10, very, very important, right? We back away from the pylon. We talked about the field setup, that goal line marker, dragging it way back because your only action on the goal line is backing up to get out of the way of the play coming at you. You know the runners and the ball carriers, they may be diving for that pylon. You don't want to be standing right on top of it, or you're going to be the pylon and get crashed into. All right, so if Tim has a touchdown on his side of the field, runner went that way, right, from the snap, and he went across. Tim signals touchdown. Am I doing the same thing over here? No, you are most definitely not going to signal that. Vice versa, if I have the touchdown on my side, Tim is not going to tell everybody he's also got a touchdown. Let the covering official signal that, okay? If you are in the middle of the field where we have a ball carrier that goes in between the hash marks, potentially that is a situation then you may both, if you have a good look at it, go up because you saw it. If you did not see it, right, we're not going to signal that. If your partner did, great. But if you both had a clear day look, ball carrier just zoomed right into the end zone in between, you know, the guard and the center or whatever, you can both potentially have that call in the middle of the field. Okay?
Ultimately, this is kind of the same logic as when to have a whistle. If the covering official is your wing on the other side, you know, don't blow your whistle. But if the ball's in the middle of the field, it's okay to have 2 whistles. So kind of same with giving a touchdown signal.
Yes. And then we're going to go outside in a moment and practice our actual touchdown signaling, so I won't go into too much detail about that right here. But we talk about that dead ball officiating, right? So you're on the pylon or you're on the goal line. Woo! I have a touchdown, and all you do is you stare at your hands or you stare straight ahead, right? Great, you have the touchdown signal, but as an end of a play, you cannot forget about that dead ball officiating aspect too, especially if it's close to you on your side in the pylon. You may have a touchdown signal that is also rotating because you are keeping watch of your ball carrier or other players that may be next to you or behind you. It is okay to potentially be moving with your touchdown signal as you are also dead ball officiating. Don't forget that action is still happening. You don't want to miss a slug to the head or something back here because we're signaling a touchdown and 2 people are fighting behind you, right? That is something to watch.
Or a celebration.
Or celebrations.
More commonly a celebration.
Yes. Sometimes you get both on the same thing in the play. All right, so that's goal line coverage. We're going to go outside and practice that here. There's your whole slide on dead ball officiating, right? Basically, end of a play, don't forget what your job is. You are maintaining game management, you are maintaining folks, making sure that we don't have any cheap shots, anything unsportsmanlike, anything extracurricular happening at the end of the play, right? So it's a crew responsibility, making sure that we've got coverage after the play is over or after a whistle. Making sure we've got a spot, getting a spot communicated to our umpire, the ball reset, right? That becomes part of a crew responsibility here. Making sure our chains and our chain crew then reset, that we're ready for the next play. Crew responsibility here. And communicating with each other, knowing that we are all on the same page, we are signaling, we're verbalizing what down is upcoming. You're talking to your white hat, you're talking to your umpire, making sure that we're all in agreement of what's upcoming with our next down and distance. And then higher level things, keeping sure that the clock and substitutions and things of that nature are being legally maintained or running, or whatever the case is, that your crew will help you out with. But again, there's a lot of things going on in between each play that you'll start thinking about and watching and then hopefully recognizing as we go through some of your first game reps. Lots to watch, even when football is not actually happening live, right? That's like 80% of the game is dead ball stuff, right, when it comes down to it. So there's a lot to keep a watch on when the ball is not actually doing anything. All right, tragic pitfalls, because I've been there, I've done them. Everybody that's officiated as a wing has probably done these. So I plant these seeds here because when you hear about them through the course of your games and your season, right, these are things that we're starting to think about minimizing the best we can. And I know it's hard, right? So that ball watching and eyes in the wrong place. You're going to hear that a lot. It's a hard habit to start breaking, and things that as a spectator you watch, all of a sudden you don't need to be watching as an official. So the ball watching eyes in the wrong place, something that just takes practice. The signal or the whistle when you should have one, that's one that you're going to run into. You're going to be like, oh crap, I know I should blow a whistle for some reason, end of a play, or something happened right in front of me, or I saw a penalty and then decided to not throw my flag for some reason. It happens. It happens. That's where we'll leave it at. And you're going to be like, oh crap, what happens to you in your game? And then you'll start hopefully not having that happen too much as you go forward in your officiating career. The moving intentionally. I'm a runner, so I have to work on this, that I move too much, right? Same thing can happen though, if you get excited, you don't have to run just to say that you ran during a play. Sometimes staying on the line of scrimmage is okay as a wing. Bouncing heads and things like that actually make you see less when you get out there. So moving with purpose. The elephant-sized penalties, the how did you miss the gigantic face mask right in front of you, or the egregious receiver false start right in front of you. You're going to miss them, you're going to get chewed out, you're going to see it on video, and you're going to be like, what was I looking at? I don't know. But those elephant-sized penalties, the pitfalls of a new official that you're like, I got it now in the second game, the third game, the second week, the third week. And then that effort, right? So things you didn't think went well in the first game, a rule, a situation, something like that, take it upon yourself. Ask those questions, dig into your books, talk to your white hats and your crew chiefs about what can I improve upon, or why did this not go how I thought it was going to, so that you can start seeing those improvements game to game, week to week, and hopefully stick with this season to season. On the plus side, highlights though, right? Being a wing is really fun. Outside of being a white hat, you are the critical position on every single level of football that we do, right? So elementary and middle school games start with a crew of 3, white hat and 2 wings. That's why you're learning this position. All the way through our 5-man and 7-man officiating games in varsity level high school, right? So these wings are absolutely critical. You are foundational to the crew as a wing. So learning these mechanics, learning these positions and things like that. I wing a lot because I like to back judge, but that only happens in varsity 5-person games, so otherwise you get to be a wing a lot. And so we go through these reps a lot of times in the season. It's super duper fun to be a part of. Keeping that pulse of the sideline, right? When my sideline is doing great and engaged, right, and I can report that back to my crew, and my crew is communicating to me to talk to my sideline, having that kind of succinctness is a really cool way that you can be involved with your sideline and making sure that the game management and flow is something you are helping with and taking part in. You and your wing partner were in sync all game. Randy and I were opposite wings a number of times, 3 or 4 times last year. And when we're like going through all of these pre-snap routines and mechanics, and I'm like, oh, Randy's signaling something I don't get all the time from people. It's really fun to be in sync with your wing partner. You want that every game. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. And when you have those that you're in sync with your partner, it is a ton of fun. Because you're like, we're in our groove today, right? And you want to be that every single time. Your R's day with your vocals, your helpfulness, your game situation awareness. Your folks in the middle of the field, your white hat, your umpire, appreciate that you know your game situation and you're communicating with them. Telling them about where our down distance is. If your sideline has something that needs to be related, that you're doing that. Making sure that if we have potentially a timeout on the way, because coach has told you on the sideline, I'm going to take a timeout next play. Something like that. Communicating with the folks in your field that may not know that is a great way to make sure that your crew is kind of all on the same page. And then again, what you can control. Your effort, you were in the position to get a best look that you could at every single play, and then the game with confidence and solid knowledge, right? That's what we're doing here. That being a wing is a lot of fun, and what you get out of it is what you then produce on the field. And when you have put in this effort and things like that, you really do have kind of that group dynamic and cohesion that's really fun in terms of an officiating crew and wing position. And so one of the things I like best here is knowing when I have a good spot or a good touchdown call. And I'm like, I knew I was on the line, I saw it, I sold it, coach hated it, but I had it right here. And I'm like, I can go off the field with confidence knowing that I got that call as close to right as I could because of what I put into that. So wing highlights, a lot of fun in this position too. That's a lot. We're gonna go practice all of this outside right now before we do anything in terms of notes and slides before we go through some of these reps outside. All right, it's a lot. Yeah, lots of good stuff. Pardon?
I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
Just with your association, on a touchdown run up the middle, umpire's got a great view, but the wings are kind of blocked out. I mean, what's the, are we winking a nod, or what would be the?
So the mechanic on that, and that's sometimes varied by crew and crew, the umpire will absolutely not ever have that touchdown signal. The mechanic as written out is that the umpire can assist a couple of different signals. One is the most important, is pointing at the ball to help wings identify the ball. By crews, you can potentially sometimes have an umpire signal where if an umpire has ruled or had a very clear look that is going to be, maybe debated, that they have a score to potentially do like a fist or a small thumbs up to wings to show that, but they will never have that touchdown signal. Because you're not on the line, only if you are dead certain will you necessarily go into that. Otherwise, you're going to let your wings with that confidence and that look come in and crash the sideline, crash to the goal line and make a ruling on that kind of thing. Because if you come in and say, I have a touchdown, and they're like, you're 8 yards deep in the end zone, the optics potentially could be a problem on that, even if you did have a really good look on that. Do you have thoughts on umpire besides?
Yeah, we've got a 5A state championship umpire sitting right back there, so what do you think, James?
Basically everything he said, we'll pregame it. Our thing is a touch to the belly, if I have it in, or I'll point to the ball. Not that I have the ball scoring, but just where the ball is when the weekend did.
Right.
So, I mean, it's gonna be crew to crew.
What the umpire will see a lot of times is the ball go across the goal line, but what he doesn't know is if the runner's knee went down before the ball fell across the goal line. So that's why you have to rely on the wings to get the spot, because even if a guy goes onto his knees and falls with the ball across the goal line, it looks like a touchdown, and it's not a touchdown because when his knees hit the ground, the ball was still outside of the goal line, and then he fell across. So it's really important that umpire can say, I have the ball in the end zone to the wings, and the wings go, great, but he was down before the ball went into the end zone. That's what we're really after.
And that goal line mechanic, if you are a wing, right, and we had a goal line play, you've already hopefully either beaten your runner to the goal line or crashed as soon as that ball snaps, that you're going to come in one way or the other with confidence across with your partner crashing at the same time. Either we had them short or we had them in. Yeah.
That's all I was gonna reiterate, is just sell it. If you aren't 100% sure, put them down at the 1 foot. I mean, if it's 4th down and that's it, I mean, that is the money line at that point. If it's a close game, obviously, but it's your actions will tell Grandma Lucy up in the stands that you saw them down, no matter what. Then the coaches can't say anything, nobody can say anything. If you stand there for a minute, a pause, everybody's gonna be on you. It's a fact.
So that posture, that mechanic, that effort in terms of selling a call, right, for a practice, that makes or breaks far more than if you were completely right every single time, right? So that's kind of that presence of an official. So